if slavery tells us that those who control us are the epitome of beauty and intelligence, then you want to be like them. Hairstyle, color of skin, intellect. If you want to be like that, then you're going against your own natural order. And so unfortunately, if you don't have something to compare with, if you don't see yourself in these enlightened positions, then you think that the other meaning European, has dominance in these areas. And all you gotta do is look at magazines and what kind of ads they have in terms of standards of beauty, so-called black beauty. Is it closer to being European? Or you look at how we identify in terms of movies. You always have say a dark complexion male, but you always have a light complexion woman. So what is that saying to us? That a man who is dark complexion, who might become successful, must have a woman who is lighter, who is more European than African? Those are psychological controls. The same is true with intelligence. There are students who, upon seeing a professor of color, may not think that professor knows as much as a white professor, because they've been so ingrained in whiteness that it's hard to escape the fact that white people don't have a dominance on intelligence, nor certainly a dominance on beauty. But that's a hard thing to overcome. And you can see this very often. If I walk into an office and there's, say, a white woman sitting 20 feet away and a black woman sitting 5 feet away, and if I put my attention to the white woman 20 feet away to ask her a question, that shows where my brain is. It shows that in my own thinking, I'm thinking only the white woman has the answer to my question, whereas the answer might be the black woman. There was a skit on Sanford and Son where Fred Sanford goes to the dentist, and the dentist looks at him and says, oh, this is really a hard problem. And it's a white dentist. I got to bring in an expert. So who comes in? A man of color. And Fred Sanford immediately says, well, where do you go to school? How long do you practice? Turns out that the man of color is the expert. But Fred Sanford, in his mindset, is thinking, oh, the white guy must be the expert. So that's mind control.
Certainly the media has been a major influence on the way that, I'm going to talk black women and specifically how black women negotiate who they are, how they come to understand their identity. And the media, I mean, we could think about this idea of white domination, white supremacy, capitalism. We know that although we have made it in spaces, we, black people, have made it in spaces, for the most part, everything is dominated by white folks. And so knowing that they're going to, white folks in power, in the media, they are going to stand by the script that has always been. And that script has always been holding on to stereotypes. So I'm thinking specifically about a few that I've written about and learned about, that some of the women in my study, when I talked to some mothers who returned to school after a number of years, they talked about the stereotypes that they were up against and how they believed that education helped for them to mitigate those stereotypes. And they talked specifically about the matriarch. And the matriarch, if we think back to enslavement times, was painted as a heavy-set, dark-skinned black woman who had a rag on her head all of the time, running around, moving around, yelling at folks, trying to emasculate her man. Very, very clear that there was no tenderness, about the matriarch. And although the matriarch should be held up in the sense of there are a lot of women I know who are matriarchs of their family. Either their husbands have passed away or other circumstances have allowed or have forced for them to be so. So it's not a negative sense in the way that we use it within our communities. But when you think about the stereotype of the matriarch, it's just that. It's this sort of Aunt Jemima headscarf wearing, heavy-set black woman, no tenderness, yelling, pushing, and just screaming her thoughts. That's not who we are. That's not who we are. We've never been that. The media has painted that. The Jezebel, I think specifically about, you know, how Hollywood pushes all of these images. And my mind goes to Halle Berry, beautiful woman, wonderful actress, and her role in Monsters Ball. And it wasn't until she played the role of, you know, a woman who was the lover of a white man, doing some things that some of us would say was degrading herself. She was awarded an Academy Award, an Oscar. So we have to look at the connection between the media and perpetuating stereotypes, and then how it honors those stereotypes. It's pernicious, it's deep, and it's a system that we have to understand. History shows us that our children were targeted as well in the most vicious kind of way. I think specifically about the pickaninny and how that was reinforced through the popular TV show, The Little Rascals. You know, with buckwheat, if you remember the show The Little Rascals, that was the quintessential pickaninny. You know, natural hair is beautiful, but the way that it was presented in that is that it was hair that was unkept. That buckwheat, and yes, we came from poverty because the systems, starting with enslavement, intended us not just to be poor, it actually intended to wipe us out, you know, after the job was over. So yes, I can think about children historically, even my own mom who grew up in the South, who had to dress like that. You know, overalls high above the ankles, no shoes, sometimes no shirt. But again, that's not all we are. And the way that it was used through the buckwheat character was just to reinforce that black children are, you know, just kind of stupefied, would have no direction without alfalfa and some of the other white characters sort of following them around, and lost. And I think that that stereotype is etched in the minds of many teachers, whether they watch The Little Rascals or not. Over time, the media has provided enough examples for black children to be presented in a particular way. Based on film and Hollywood and TV and things that are not real, they treat our children a particular way, and those consequences are extremely real.